Tate here. I need to be more animated. I need to come down a bit. Hey guys. Hey guys. Hi everyone. No. Oh, I need to get used to this. Hello everybody. Tate here. Hi everyone. Tate here. Thank you for coming back and watching the second video in the series Everywhere Commerce. And I am going to start by talking a little bit about the state of play at the moment and what's happening now versus what happened before and what led us to now. So I just want to go through, I've made a couple of notes, so I've got bullet points and then I'll talk on each one. So to start with, I want to set the scene. So people have been buying and selling since the beginning of man, right? So people have been trading seashells for pieces of food or nuts and berries and things that look shiny and things that were valuable to little microcosms of culture throughout the history of time. So trade isn't anything new to us, but trading online is constantly becoming more and more efficient, and it inevitably will until it reaches a singularity. I imagine we'll get to a place where I think I want something, I have a balance that I can draw from, and that person wants to sell something, and some sort of matchmaking will happen. All I'll need to do is think it. The balance will get drawn from, it will go into that person's balance, and just through thought, I will own that thing. It'll either appear straight away because we'd have solved that somehow, teleportation or whatever, but essentially a singularity will happen, and we're moving closer and closer to that. And it sounds a bit silly, but we're only at where we are in terms of technology. As we get more and more advanced, what seems insane to be the case will probably be normal, just like what we have now would seem insane 20 years ago. So to set the scene, we've evolved a lot. We've gone from very rudimentary online transactions, which have been called electronic commerce, or what we know as e-commerce, happening since the early 80s. So my first podcast episode is with a guy called Alexander Randall, and he's an amazing guy. Hats off to you, Alexander, or Alex, as I like to call him. Alex agreed to be my first podcast guest. So that was really special because I've been working in e-commerce. At 16, I started with e-commerce, and even then it had been going for at least 20 years by that point. And so the first ever e-commerce transaction happened on a bulletin board. So not even before the standard internet, before the internet that we know today, the first online kind of digital transaction took place with the Boston Computer Exchange, which Alex founded. So Professor Alexander Randall V, if you want to look him up, and he co-founded the Boston Computer Exchange, and he liaised with originally just paper cards, and then eventually through this bulletin board software that he developed with his co-founder Cameron to organize and mediate transactions between people who would join this bulletin board. So the first transaction that took place was between, I believe, someone in Boston and someone in Santiago, Chile. You can see that in the podcast that you can find on the Pivotal website, so pivotal.digital/moments. And it's a really interesting podcast. I spent a good hour chatting with Alex, super interesting. And it talks about the need to make commerce and trading easier. So that need's always been there. That's the frustration. And then what Alex did with his co-founder Cameron and his team was to use the latest technology at the time to facilitate the removal of that friction. By the way, guys, I didn't say it. I need to get into this. So it seems to be the case that on all YouTube channels, they say like and subscribe. So if you can, like this, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, tell me what I can do better. I'm trying to improve this. I realize I might waffle sometimes or go in different directions, but I will definitely be improving my game. I got a haircut this time around, so you can see the transition between the last video and this video, only a few days apart. So anyway, back to my point. Alex and Cameron at the Boston Computer Exchange removed friction and created the first transaction online, which set a precedent for what we now have as e-commerce and what we know of it today. What they actually created was a marketplace, because they weren't selling their own products. They were selling products that belonged to other people and allowing the bulletin board to then mediate, as Amazon does now and eBay and all the other marketplaces, the transaction between the two people. And of course, if that went well, then potentially it would get, I don't think they had a feedback like a 5-star system, but they would be able to set to see if anyone was exploiting it and allow them on and off the bulletin board. So it was the embryonic version of what we now know as marketplaces. Piero Midyar actually did work experience with Alex and Cameron at the Boston Computer Exchange, and he was the founder of eBay. So he went off and created eBay from the experience he had with these guys, and that kind of shows you that this was the seed of something huge, something that was going to change the planet. So that was the origination of e-commerce, and there's a great Pivotal Moments podcast and blog article on the Pivotal website, so go check that out and let me know what you think. Also comment on that video too, because that's on this same channel. So following from that, I've got a question I want to ask, so maybe you can leave a comment and let me know what your answer is in the comment section. When was the last time you actually shopped through a traditional website? So it's still relatively common. I still shop on traditional websites, but I shop a lot on marketplaces. I shop a lot on Amazon in particular. People are shopping on TikTok, and social shopping is really popular now. People are shopping on lives. People are shopping using QR codes and NFC. And the last transaction you probably did was not on a website. But I am interested to see what you think. So let me know in the comments where you last shopped online so I can get a bit of a view for it. But my thoughts are that a large amount of you will say not on a traditional website. They'll always have their place. And I think they're going to be more signposts for people who aren't sure where to go. But I think e-commerce now, and as I talk about in the book, is always going to be closer and closer to the person who wants it, as fast as they want it. And the person who doesn't do that will sell less. And so the incentive is always to sell more. And then that's going to always drive merchants to get closer to the customer and to make them do less. Because people are lazy. It's in our nature. The brain is lazy. We don't want to do anything. We want to sit there and have it all come to us. So that's a bit of a preview. I think 1982 to 2025 is quite a big leap. We had quite a few things happen since then. So we talked about 1982. We talked about the Boston Computer Exchange. It was very limited at the time to people who owned computers and who were quite nerdy and geeky. And you couldn't use this bulletin board software developed in, I think, Delphi to buy and sell anything else. So if you had a car, you couldn't do it. Alex does talk about in the foreword to the book. So Alex very kindly wrote the foreword to my book, Everywhere Commerce. So you can read his foreword, and he talks about how the oil companies were interested in his marketplace software. So I would definitely, of course I'm going to recommend you buy a copy of the book. You can get it from pivotal.digital/everywhere-commerce. It's also going to be available on Amazon, if not now, then very soon, and all good booksellers, so pick it up. We can find out more about Alex's journey and where the Boston Computer Exchange took him. Anyway, back to the point. I said I might veer off. So I just want to make sure there's a fact check. So basically, some of you will probably notice I haven't mentioned Michael Aldrich. So Michael Aldrich invented over the phone online shopping, or shopping online as in phone line, as in a teletext-based over the phone transaction system. So people were out there developing and creating this concept at the same time. There were various different people. I'm sure they were aware of each other, some weren't. So to differentiate between Michael Aldrich in 1979 and Alex Randall and Cameron in 1982, here are the main differences. So Michael Aldrich, his invention was more interactive shopping. So interactive tele-shopping, to be precise. His method was that he connected a TV to a teletext system and then managed to operate a transaction. I think it was a Tesco's order. He was a British guy, into a terminal that then transacted and did the transaction over the phone. I think it was for an elderly lady as well. So I think the idea being that it allowed older people to shop from home, which is a lovely idea. So the legacy there is it was the first concept of online shopping. It was a good proof of principle. It's a it's a precursor to e-commerce, and the e-commerce that I was referring to earlier with Alex Randall. Use case was B2B transactions, was demoed and prototyped with the one transaction, this elderly lady. The difference there is Boston Computer Exchange, they did the first public online marketplace. So it was an e-commerce transaction because it happened over the internet. So there's a clear difference between like shopping, as in a phone line, which would be fine because you can say online, e-commerce. So e-commerce implies the transaction happens electronically, as in over the internet. So for that to happen, for the first public online marketplace to have made the transaction, that was Alex Randall. So a key differentiator be Aldrich kind of concept of in-person transacting. So not, here you go, here's my money, give me the goods, but instead it's going to happen over a phone line or remotely. And then Alex Randall and Cameron, they created a process where we could operationally transact over the internet without even speaking on the phone, having to send data. It would have been over dial-up, but it would have been data rather than a teleshopping type setup. I think it's also really important to highlight that they were both pre-internet. So I've just kind of conflicted on what I was saying before. The bulletin board system is a type of internet, but it's not the internet we know today. So it's a network. It connects multiple computers, multiple users together. So it is an interconnected network. So it's pre-internet internet, and it's the earliest version of what we have today. So there you go. Hopefully that helps to explain it. A little bit confusing, but both were absolutely instrumental in the world we live in now, and we would not be here without either of them. Hopefully that helps. So next we have from 1994, or in the 90s, should we say, the year 2000, what was called the dot-com boom. So Netscape launches, Amazon and eBay are born, add to cart becomes a standard interaction. So websites begin to allow you to add to cart. Shopping becomes a lot more normalized. People tend to expect to be able to buy things online. eBay is a way you can buy and sell, which is great, and it's formed a foundation for what we have now. And Amazon, although they started in books, they quickly grew into what we have now. And even when they were a bookseller, they were very popular and became international. So Amazon and eBay were definitely huge during the dot-com boom and set a precedent for what other websites should do throughout that growth period in our history. So this was a time as well before platforms were really a thing. So I kind of came into this 2000 also. My first website was around about the year 2000. It was before there was a platform. So we're talking Magento, Shopify, Cart, Zencart, WP e-commerce, which kind of died off, and then WooCommerce took over with WordPress, a host of other platforms. They all came later, so post 2000, but pre 2000, if you saw e-commerce online, you saw a custom-made, bespoke e-commerce system or platform, or together version of something using PayPal or something that was very tech savvy would have put together. Post 2000, you still needed to be tech savvy, but there were platforms. So all of the above, you could install them on a server. You could manually put in all your products, not tens of thousands. If you did that, you had a lot of time on your hands because there wasn't bulk imports. There wasn't ways to mass it and maintain your catalog. It was a slog and a process to get that done. From 2000 to 2010, the next era, looking at the emergence of SEO, we're looking at banner ads, affiliate marketing begins to show signs of promising marketing opportunity. Rise of Shopify, PayPal, BigCommerce, and a lot of the major platforms that we see today started to their process of seeding the idea of multiple users on one platform, hosted commerce, hosted on their servers, and creating a setup where users can just sign up, modify their website, and get a rudimentary e-commerce website online. But none of the big players did that. This was very much a mom-and-pop business. Small, tiny organizations might use it, but all major players would use a platform, have something custom built, because they could know it was reliable, they could test it, and to them, it was such a big deal to transact online they would make sure that all that custom work was just done. Any bugs or problems with that code, they would pay for. So there was a big overhead when managing these online stores. You just needed to be very technically sound so you can go and fix it yourself. But most founders, CEOs who weren't super tech at the time and needed to pay a lot of money to tech people to make sure that that was taken care of. So another notable update from that time, from the noughties, was mobile shopping. So UX at the time wasn't mobile first. Mobile first wasn't really a concept. It was starting to go that way because the iPhone, I'll find out when that was invented. Okay. iPhone was invented in the year 2007. So we're still in the noughties. I think we're looking at the tail end of the noughties. So I don't know what do they call the noughties in America? The zeros aren't noughts in America. If you know what Americans call noughties, put that in the comments below as well, because I'm really curious about that. Here in the UK, we call that era between the year 2000 and 2010 the noughties, because we say naught instead of zero. So let me know. Anyway, the advent of the iPhone really changed what developers and users thought would be a standard when it comes to buying and selling online. So for the iPhone was the first time you could interact with a web page using touch. It was the first time you could see in a very small space what a website would look like. And all websites looked terrible on mobile devices when the iPhone first came out. Browsers weren't really capable of showing anything different. But then when we moved and started to become more mobile friendly, we were desktop first because that was the most popular medium, and mobile second. And that meant that build it for a desktop site and then hide things, but you still have to load them on a mobile view. And because we still had to load them on a mobile view, the mobile view took ages to load. So then we decided to flip it as user behavior changed to create mobile first design. And what that meant was it would show only the elements needed for a mobile first. And as the screen scaled out, we would then load in the assets for the web page that were needed for the larger views. That's called mobile first design. And that was huge. That was a big shift in the way we had to build websites. And I remember having to build websites like that without a platform and think all of a sudden, instead of thinking, what does this flat design look like, kind of inspired by print, does it look nice on a page kind of thing, to thinking, does it look nice in these 50 different views, landscape, screen, big screen, medium-sized screen, tablet, widescreen monitor, the list goes on. So it made web design and web development complex because you had to consider all these different angles, test on all these different screens. And then you had cross-browser compatibility issues. So you had Firefox mobile would look different than a Safari mobile, or would have different web standards. So that's a whole separate kettle of fish, and we won't go into that now, but it's worth an honorable mention. So, where were we? So we begin in the noughties as well, or whatever you call it in America. Look at retargeting and Google AdWords, as it was called at the time. So retargeting is where would exhibit a behavior in one place, and that user would be tracked, and then we would be able to log that they are interested in that type of behavior, and then we could then show them other ads or the same ads, same messaging in other places they would visit by tracking them across various different sites using cookies and other methods. We begin to look at that kind of side of marketing, and Google Ads begins to define what acquisition looks like in terms of I pay for this and I get that. Before that, SEO was really the main way to get traffic, and people gamed the hell out of it. So took the opportunity, recognized that merchants and sellers needed to have traffic, and they knew they had it. So instead of having people game the system, and they continue to do it today, sold the traffic that was in such high demand. And that's how Google make all of their money. Of course, at the time, with these platforms, Shopify, Magento, OzCommerce, OpenCart, the list goes on, still have this website checkout transaction model where you go on the website, you check out, and it's delivered to you probably in a couple of weeks at the time. It's still centralized. It's still happening in one place. Amazon is very much its own website. You've got the idea of marketplaces coming out with Amazon, but not quite in the version that we've got it now, but definitely going in that direction. And then you've got eBay, where it is a marketplace, but it's it's not for B2B necessarily. Businesses were forming on it, but it was more just, here's my product, I want to sell it, here's an auction, I'm going to let you bid on it or do a buy it now kind of thing. Then the next era, from 2010 to 2020, coming up to where we are now, you've got the social media explosion. So Instagram, Facebook ads, influencer marketing start to really blow up. YouTube, always a huge channel because people come here to watch. People learn through watching. I learn through watching. I'm much better at learning through watching than reading about it, although I wrote a book. But, some people learn better with a book, but YouTube is a fantastic channel. One of the earlier social media channels because you can comment, you can engage with the content, you can influence the next video that the YouTube creator will put out, and it's kind of a to and fro community. You can share content, that kind of thing. So YouTube obviously then exploding out into Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and that was most of it, I think, at the time. I think Twitter being the first proper mini fast-paced social media, followed by Facebook, and then, of course, Instagram. Instagram only really being really useful later, though. Yes. So this is an era where mobile-first design really takes hold, where people are, like me, developing sites for their customers and platforms as well, developing themes for their hosted websites. Really starting to look towards a mobile-first because desktop first makes no sense. Even in a world where mobile is not the most commonly used medium for e-commerce, it still makes sense to design everything to be mobile first anyway because it uses less resources, it's lighter weight, and if they happen to have a bigger machine or a bigger screen, then it makes sense to load those in afterwards. But we start to see the majority of websites make that shift towards mobile first, which is huge. And that happened during this era or this decade. Then we start to see some huge shifts in brands becoming hyper successful on D2C, so direct-to-commerce, e-commerce, such as the Dollar Shave Club using influencer marketing and social media. So to begin with, SEO, paid ads were the channel, possibly some traffic from YouTube, print advertising, a combination of in-home, out-of-home advertising. But in the era or the decade of 2010 to 2020, influencer marketing became huge. So if a celebrity said on their social media, hey, go buy my product, they could provide a link or tell you where to go and you would go find that. You go out of your way to find that, maybe depending on how influenced you were by them, and then you'd buy the product. So that started to show signs of being extremely promising. More and more merchants and brands started to latch onto that. And look at where we are today. So it's huge. But again, checkout still exists mostly on the website rather than everywhere, and but it's starting to really grow and go in that direction. So the friction's starting to show again. The resolve isn't quite there yet. What we do see though is Amazon starting to really dominate in that decade, and they start using data properly. They start looking at the types of information that them into the giant they are now, and that is things like, well, I've got 200 sellers on my marketplace selling fidget spinners. You can see that they're selling really well in these regions. I'm going to now go buy a bunch of fidget spinners. This is Amazon themselves. And I'm going to take my own buy box because why not? I own the website. And I'm going to push these other sellers down and make all the profit from this and sell the product. So this is another really interesting example of marketplaces, but also exploiting their own kind of situation, which leads to sellers not being very happy about that, obviously, because they're providing all the information for Amazon to then use that to their own gain. And all businesses need to use information to their gain, but the marketplace kind of blurs the line of, are they looking after their merchants or are they trying to take advantage of slightly more profit themselves? Long game, more merchants, more profit. Short term, focus on kind of stealing some of that profit for themselves, pushing out merchants, making them go look elsewhere or everywhere. And that's what happens next. So now we're kind of in the next decade. So the decade that we're in now, 2020 to 2030. And we're halfway through, 2025. So TikTok is absolutely smashing it. It's huge. Some people who would never have bought and sold online are going on there because it's trending, but also its access and ease of use is just simple. If you have the app on your phone, they're very good at making it clear and easy to understand what's next in order to get online and start selling on TikTok Shop. And if you're not selling on TikTok Shop and you're an influencer or you've got a following, and by the way, they make it very easy to get a following too, so then you can help them sell products. You can be an affiliate, which means you can just get sent products very easy through their platform, hold it up, tell everyone how much you love that product, and then sell and take a commission on that sale, all within the same ecosystem, which is incredibly smart, because up until that point, those things, the affiliate model was happening elsewhere, the influencer marketing was happening elsewhere on a social media channel, and then the transaction would be taking place on the website. So TikTok have got it all in one. You've got a one-stop shop to see what an influencer wants to sell, if it's the products that they endorse, and you don't even need to leave the platform, which is very smart. And a lot of people don't leave that platform. So you've got live stream shopping. It happens across multiple social media channels now, where people will go live, they'll demonstrate a product. That platform features that live in a more dominant way, makes it easier to access it, makes people feel more engaged and captivated, because if they leave the live, they're leaving that real time streaming interaction, and possibly opportunities to save money, to have interaction and banter and a good time with the other people on that live, and get feedback and real interaction with the person that is actually running the live too. So where was I? So that's a huge one. Voice commerce. Remember my friend Doug, his name is. Remember feeling cheeky when this first came out, and I think I'd had a drink or two, possibly a beer. I said, "Hey Alexa," I don't have one here, so it's not going to go off. "Order 30 toilet rolls." And sure enough, not 30 toilet rolls, but 30 packs of toilet roll were ordered just from my voice, because he had set up his Alexa that way. It's hilarious, and I think he managed to stop it before the 30 whole packs of toilet roll arrived. But I just wanted to test it, and buggy, really impressive. And that was 12 years ago, I think 10, 12 years ago. So nowadays that's licked. If you need to buy something, you've got various ways to do it on all of the little home assistants. You just have to say the word, and that product will be with you possibly the same day, if not next day. And you also have headless stores. So you've got merchants who have, say, another platform, and they are API driven and can plug into other things. So you can provide headless commerce to anything. So for example, Instagram and TikTok plug into Shopify. You can list your products for sale from Shopify out, and the transactions can happen on Shopify, but kind of be initiated on those social media platforms. And that's also huge, because it gives you that central source of truth. You know, like for example, Linworks or another order management system is a central source of truth and can manage multiple channels. That's another form of headless commerce. But nowadays, also brands can sell through chat. So when I say that, I mean they can go on stories, they can start engaging with people in like message boards, they can speak in groups on Facebook, they can go on lives. There are communities now on WhatsApp and Instagram, paid communities too sometimes. And you can mention keywords and you can create bots. Those bots will then scan for certain keywords and send direct messages with purchase links straight to the people interested. So automation, DMs, communities, chat, all you need to do is express an interest in a live environment, real time or chat. And if set up correctly now, and it's going to become easier and easier with tools like ManyChat and similar, that you just have to express an interest, and those products that you're interested in will kind of in your own inbox, and you can just click the link straight there and either purchase straight from email now as well, or be sent to a site to do the transaction, wherever it might be. But it's less about where it is and more about where you decided to buy it. That's the key differentiator. So I think the key takeaway from this, and I know I've done a lot of talking, but the key takeaway from this is that commerce is now distributed. It's everywhere. It's not in one place. It's going to be more and more like that. Or you can go into quite a few stores now, buy using your credit card, or your phone, Apple Wallet, that kind of thing. You can then, if that store doesn't have that product in stock, often there'll be a screen near it and you can interact with their website and go order it to be delivered to your house same day or next day, and then complete your shopping experience in person, in store, in the retail environment, and then go home and have the other products that you maybe didn't want to carry home, or they didn't have them in stock in store, but they have got them in a central warehouse. They're all at your door at the same time. There is no single path to a transaction now. It's not go to a website, find my product and add it to cart, check out, have it delivered. That does exist, but that process, that funnel is now distributed and non-linear and everywhere. You might start the checkout process on Instagram, finish it on Shopify, add something to your basket in an email, follow-up conversation in a chat, and have it all delivered to your house at the same time. You could then raise a customer complaint on Twitter, or we'll call it X now. That person will then go and reach out for them from the customer service team, speak to them on Twitter, possibly on WhatsApp or another channel, and then issue the refund via WhatsApp, for example. It can happen that way. It can happen in every possible way, and that's why it's now got to be called everywhere commerce, not e-commerce. It's no longer linear like the hyphen in the e-commerce. It's everywhere, like the asterisk in the new version of the e-commerce. So why e-commerce is now outdated as a phrase? And I say that, will still be called e-commerce, right? It's e-commerce with the hyphen. It implies a single channel. It implies we live in a world where just go to a website or you transact in a single place. And we live in a multi-channel world. So e-commerce with an asterisk has got to be the new now. Well, whether we like it or not, that's where we are. The traditional funnel is broken as well, because funnels are kind of shaped like that. You've got top of the funnel activities where people kind of light intent, and then they move down the funnel as you begin to convert them through messaging and through repeat interaction, and then eventually they become a sale or the transaction happens. But now you get touch points, and touch points are top of the funnel activities, but the funnel is much bigger, and the touch points are everywhere. So they might see a product on Amazon or see it on social media or hear an influencer talk about it. They might see it on a billboard or interact with it in an app. And then you don't want it at that point. The intent isn't there, but it starts to build a picture. So another reason why e-commerce has to be everywhere, because if intent happens from those touch points, say in the app, okay, I've seen the ad or I've seen this touch point for this product in the app. Well, why not make the transaction happen in the app? And then that person doesn't have to do anything. They're much less likely to convert if there are less steps to check out. And that happens way smoother when you haven't got to change from one platform to another. So you don't launch a store anymore per se. You put a store there because you need something like that, but you launch a system. You launch an operational set of e-commerce rather than the specific. So the behavior's changed, and so therefore language should too. But it's only a very small tweak in the language. I'm going to use it from now on. I think everywhere commerce has got to be what it stands for. But that's not the point. Like, don't spend the whole time calling it that. Let's just acknowledge it and move on to optimizing websites, optimizing social media, and all the different platforms that you can sell on, and all the different marketplaces to actually sell. And not just sell, but improve the experience for the buyer, because the buyer is super important too. And buying market share, and you do that through not the amount of users that have signed up to your website, but the amount of people that recognize your brand and look at you fondly and familiarly and think about you when they want to make their next purchase. That's market share. And that happens really now with branding and having people remember you and be at the forefront of their mind when they're looking to make that next purchase. And so I think the reason that stands true and will always stand true is that strategy, which is what we're in the business of doing here at Pivotal, but also probably those watching this channel, because you probably won't be interested in it unless you're looking to optimize a website or multiple websites or channels for sales. The strategy follows behavior. So if there's a behavior, that's the indicator. Don't expect the behavior to change to what you want. Look at the behavior and then learn from that and implement. Your head of marketing should be your customer. Any successful business should appoint the customer as the head of marketing and then just watch their behavior. They don't need to say anything. They just need to be watched and observed. The data will tell the story. So in my next video, I'm going to talk more about the content of the book. If you want to grab yourself a copy, it's e-commerce written like this. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on the Pivotal website. And the first chapter that I'm going to go through is the first chapter in the book, which is this one, Understanding Your Unique Value. It's talking about unique selling propositions. It's talking about what makes your business special. Go through branding, light touch, because there's another section on branding, but we talk about how your brand should be unique and how it should lean into your unique selling proposition. I talk about planning for the type of business model that you have and what's going to work based on your unique selling proposition, how you sell, what to look for in people as you build your business and grow your team. That's a really important part of your business, is when to hire, not to hire, when to do things yourself, when to look for someone else to do that thing, and to use skills and talent of other people, recognizing that you can't do it all yourself. And then just some tips to streamline the success of your business and strategy behind that. So that's the first chapter of the book. We talk about growing pains, talk about how to delegate, of micromanaging, that kind of thing. It's a good chapter. It's a really good starting point, and I look forward to talking about it with you in the next video. So in the next video, I'll go through this in more detail. I'll get more specific on actions and things you can take to really impact your business, whether it's established or just starting out. And I will give you some case studies and talk about how founders have used some of these strategies to grow their business. I'll introduce the chapter after that, so I'll tell you what's coming next. But yeah, hopefully you found this valuable. Hopefully I've edited it in a way where it keeps your attention. But if you could like and subscribe, comment, tell me how I can improve it. Could I do with better lighting? Could I speak clearer, more slowly? Maybe offer, I don't know, more visuals, what I'm talking about, to help with understanding. Maybe I spoke a bit too fast, anything like that. Just give me some feedback and I will keep trying to improve these. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.